Greetings, everyone. It's Darren here, and it's early Sunday morn. The new moon has just come fully direct in the wee hours of the morning, and I just wanted to share some insights, as has been common with me with the new moon. We had our wonderful cacao ceremony and sacred sound journey last night at the Rock Store, and much love and gratitude to everyone who came out to that. It was a beautiful occasion to share for the first time as well at the beautiful Rock Store. And my dear old friend Samantha Chin, who runs that beautiful space in Toronto. Amazing energies were at play last night. So I want to talk a bit about what's going on with the Scorpio New Moon, how it connects to things in the world, and how the things in the world connect to the worlds of our hearts. So I've been receiving a lot of messages these days, particularly from men, about the pain of their sexuality and how to really heal that pain and how to come into right balance with it, especially men who are heterosexual, and how can they come into right balance with women. And this is so fitting on the Scorpio New Moon that these types of things would come up, and I'm always amazed at how these transits with the new moon really connect and converge with the evolutionary path and journey of our humanity. It seems more and more things are in absolute, precise alignment. And Scorpio, of course, is probably the deepest and most intense of the zodiac signs. It is a water element, and the new moon is all about the moon in general is all about shining into our conscious depths, which is what the Scorpio astrological sign is all about. And it rules over sexual energy and intense emotionality. And when one looks at what's going on in the world today, we are witnessing a true revolution in rectifying this very, very ancient wound of our sexuality. And the pain in particular of women is screaming loud and loud and loud and clear, and it's a cry for honor, and it's a cry to disentangle the dishonoring mechanisms of patriarchy, really. And I know a lot of men are shaking right now. There's a lot of men in the public eye being outed for their sexual misconduct, and there's a lot of fury being expressed by women who have been harmed and perpetrated upon by male sexual deviants. Of course, it's not just women who are being perpetrated on. There's also men. This week I reflected on how Terry Crews, probably one of the archetypes of masculinity in our culture, he's the man who's in the Old Spice ads. He shared a very harrowing story on Good Morning America this week, which I urge you to go and check out on YouTube, about how he was groped at a Hollywood party by his agent, the same agent for Adam Sandler, Sylvester Stallone, and Eddie Murphy. And right in front of his wife, this agent, this man, came up to him and grabbed his genitals not once but twice. And how that had such a violating effect on him and made him a lot more empathic to what women deal with on a daily basis. And I see a lot of men around me who are really wanting to come into alignment with their sexual energy. When they hear all the cries of women, it shakes them to their core. And I mean, I know this personally because I've dealt with a lot of my own sexual misconduct, largely in addictions to pornography and such, that have really burned me and have almost destroyed relationships, even my current one. And I'm now on a path of recovery, and it's a hard path. It's definitely a hard path, because when you wake up into the world, you realize that we are in a patriarchal world where misogyny and treating women as objects of sexuality is normalized. And not only is it's so normalized, in fact, that a lot of women unwillingly, I'm sure, play into it. We know no better. We're trained to think of things this way. But when you find yourself, I'm a monogamist, when you find yourself in an intimate partnership and you find yourself drawing very close to the heart of a woman, and she blazes that great love, and you know that the love that a woman requires really to come into pure connection is she needs all of the honor of the man to come online, to really open her heart, to really dive deep into the trust that takes place between a man and a woman, or any partnership for that matter, for intimacy to continue to evolve and deepen. And what I've been learning is dealing with the anger of my own partner towards my own sexual misconduct is that I think it's very important for men right now to be able to receive that anger and that rage from women, to hold space for it in their lives, and to realize that it's kind of like a nervous system tonic, if you will. I actually call it the Scorpio Sting, because when we are confronted with deep, emotional, intense situations, it is kind of like that sting of the scorpion, which is one of the most painful stings you can experience in your life. I have not, but my partner has been stung by a scorpion. I've seen it firsthand. But when you really work with that and you allow that poison to work on you, you realize one of the great healing wisdoms, and Chiron is very connected, the wounded healer, to this particular new moon we're in right now. And that wisdom, which is also personified in a lot of the Hindu goddesses who are poison transmuters. There's many instances where Kali transmutes poison back into nectar, the Amrita. And this is also known in homeopathy and a lot of natural-based medicines that in the right dose, something that is poisonous can be an actual tonic and a cleansing and a purgative for the nervous system and for the spiritual and the being of the person. So I know a lot of men are really shaking this because men are frankly terrified to face this stuff, because a lot of men don't have the space or the know-how to be emotionally responsive to that anger in women. And so I need women to also understand that in patriarchy, one of the great wounds that men face is that we are not trained or told how to express our feelings. And it creates a lot of anguish and terror. And then men, their default is to armor themselves, is to just cover up and to not share, and to be terrified, actually. Terrified that they're going to be emasculated, and terrified that if they are going to share, actually, the agony of what's going on with themselves, especially how helpless they often are with this hypersexual energy that's fed into them all the time, programmed into them. They're afraid, as I was afraid, sharing with some of my first partners my sexual wounds, my fetishes, and the things that I've been really helpless to get a handle on. It's terrifying. You think you're going to be rejected and you're going to be shamed. And sometimes you are shamed. And if you have the right partner, you can really work through those spaces, because it's okay for a partner to respond and to be angry and to shame you in that moment, but it's not okay for that shame to be something that's chronically expressed. Shame is a very dangerous energy. Again, I think shame in the right dose can be really activating, but when we're shamed over and over again, it's really triggering this very, very, very old collective wound that dates back all the way to the story of the Garden of Eden, where when humanity fell, according to this story, the first wound that was expressed is we felt ashamed of our naked bodies and we covered them. And that's really a symbol of how old this wound is. We have been told that our sexuality is something to be ashamed of, when in fact, the interesting thing is that sexuality is actually, when it's used rightly, has the potential to activate some of the highest vibrations in the body and to actually spiritualize us more than anything else. And this is why a lot of people are getting interested in Tantra and sacred sexuality, and they're going back into the great mystical traditions of our world, and they're realizing, especially in the East, that Tantra and women as sexual teachers to men was something that was very commonplace. Miranda Shaw's beautiful book, Passion and Enlightenment, which I've iterated on many, many occasions, talks about this, how there was all these ancient books that talked about even Buddha achieving enlightenment in the bedchamber during the throes of sexual ecstasy with his wife, who was pretty much a co-teacher with him, or a co-facilitator of that enlightenment. And even the idea of Jesus and Mary Magdalene as a sacred couple, which is more and more coming online. I think it's a good thing what's happening, and even though it's super, super intense right now, this is sort of the pendulum swinging back from a great imbalance, and it's kind of swinging back all the way to this other place where there's a lot of rage being sent upon men in particular. And I think it's going to slowly find its way back into the equilibrium. But in order for it to do that, I think men have to take responsibility and really listen and hold space for that rage. And if they do so, that seeming poison, that Scorpio sting of rage from women, can actually awaken and activate them to get their shit together, as I've been finding in my life. And getting their shit together really looks like taking control of their sexual energy, and there's so many ways to do that. There's the no-fap movement, giving up masturbation and orgasm. Cupid's Poisoned Arrow by Marnia Robinson is a great book on that as well, how the orgasm in men and women actually wreaks havoc on the dopamine reward circuitry of the brain. It gets us completely possessed by the reptilian reward circuitry in the brain, which cuts us off from our heart and just turns us into this kind of more animalistic self that always wants to just fulfill the really superficial pleasures. Whereas the oxytocin cycle, that hormone, which is the love hormone, is all about a deeper, more sustaining pleasure. And that takes a lot of sexual mastery to work with sexual energy, to realize, men have to realize that we are triggered to be very, very hypersexual. And we have 20 times the testosterone of women, so it's very easy to trigger that. It's very easy for men to feel completely consumed by their sexual energy. But we have to realize that it's been excessive, and we need to bring it back into this equilibrium. So the no-fap movement is a great resource for men. Check it out. There's lots of YouTube videos as well about giving up porn. And it's a very, very hard journey to do that, because a lot of men, like myself, we've been following these patterns since we were teenagers. And so there's really, really deep grooves in our neurochemistry that we have to reformat. And my aspiration is in the new year to start running some really deep men series workshops where we can take men through this experience. It's about a 4-week, even a 6-week journey, sometimes longer. Depends on how deep a man's sexual habits have been acted upon. And I mentioned the word romantic revival because really what this draws back in is that if you look also at the ancients, like the troubadours and the cathars, these ancient mystical Christians in the Middle Ages, they really had this beautiful understanding of chastity and how chastity was the source of love. And chastity doesn't mean necessarily not having sex. It means purifying the sexual energy so that we're constantly using it in a state of honor and to help enthuse our spiritual energy so that we can actually find what they call the esoteric shortcut to enlightenment and to an enlightened state of consciousness, which is really all about raising the energies in the body so that we're always vital, so that we can always be mindful and present. If you've ever done any work with presence, such as the presence process or the power of now, you know to stay awake all day long in that presence requires tremendous energy. And one of the great weakenings of that life force is sexual misuse. That energy is very connected to the root and the sacral chakra, and it really spills out your root energy, and it just destroys your foundation so that the spirit tower of your heart is constantly falling over and collapsing, and you have no energy actually to get even higher up into the higher faculties. And you really want all those chakras online so that you can be marrying as above and below. And it really takes tremendous energy to do that. So we have to become engineers of this energy. Cultivation is a huge key. And this is really about men realizing that when they can step towards women and really be vulnerable about their wounds and their sexuality and how helpless they are, and then seek help with other men and other groups, it confers an element of trust with women. Women will all of a sudden feel, well, not suddenly, it will take time, but women will start to feel safe again to really relate to men sexually, knowing that they can trust that the man is working on this, that they're not going to be possessed by these energies, and really opening the woman to that danger which happens if a man isn't in sexual righteousness, can really harm a woman, because a woman will typically open herself very emotionally to a man. The yoni, the vagina, if you look at the genitals, they express themselves very symbolically, and the yoni is very receptive. It opens, and it has actually an opening up top near the cervix to the wound. It opens up this secret channel to the woman's heart. And that channel will really only open in the high states of trust and ecstasy. And a man really, really wants to win the honor and earn the love of a woman to open up that sacred channel, because when the woman's heart truly opens and bestows those blessings of sensuality and beauty on a man and that love, it really is the highest medicine I feel that a man can feel in his life. So it is something. I think men do need to earn the love of women. I think that is a romantic credo. Men need to earn the love of women. It just sounds so right when you say it. It's dharma. And so men really need to ask themselves that question: how can I earn the trust and the love of women in this moment? And a lot of it is going to take men on themselves, working in ceremony and workshops, to really get a handle on what is going on with the male condition in our culture, and how can we really push back as warriors of love and really realize we are being totally fucked with in this culture. Like, really fucked with. There are images of women objectified all over the place, and it's really trying to entangle us to this misuse and this dishonoring. And we really need to push back against that, and that's going to take a lot of disciplines that are going to be unprecedented, and we need to pioneer in our life. And that's not to say we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think there's something very sensuous and beautiful and pure about women expressing their sexuality, even through their bodies. But in order for that to really happen in a state of honor, men really need to get a handle of how they're expressing that energy, so that those types of occasions can be seen as even sacred. Because a woman's body is sacred, a man's body is sacred, and sexuality is sacred. And the way that we're being conditioned and programmed is to use it in the exact opposite. Last night during the cacao ceremony, I believe it was the cacao ceremony, maybe it was another workshop, I asked people, how was their sexual education at school? And for most people, they received a horrendous sexual education. I was at an all-boys school. You can imagine what that was like. Wow. And then when I got to a high school with women, I just remember being shown all these STD slides and all this fear-mongering about how sex was very dangerous and dirty, and of course it can be, but there was no talk of intimacy and love or tantra and sacred sexuality. And that's a real dilemma, and we need to really honor that. And I really, and this is a hard one, because I know women are already in so much pain, and it's hard to ask of them even more patience. But if men can really get to the root of how crippled and helpless we are in this sexual culture, and realize we aren't educated, that men really have no idea, and women for the most part have no idea either. I hope that a beautiful pool of collective compassion can start from that place of realizing how ignorant we are and how miseducated we are on sexuality. And then from that 0 point, we can really come together as warriors of love to really create and foster a new sacred sexuality paradigm. And my ambition is actually to bring this into the education system, working with hopefully my friend Michael Eisen at the Youth Wellness Network, to really bring this to the young ones, to start them off at a young age. I've seen harrowing statistics of how young boys especially are getting into porn at the ages of like 10 or 12. And it really, at that age, they're so impressionable, and it creates horrendous neurochemical problems that are going to take a lot of time to really offset. So we really want to get to the young ones, but it's going to start now with all of us really realizing there's a huge problem. But as the Scorpio New Moon is showing with Chiron, the wounded healer, with any great adversity, there is a sweetness and opportunity to bring forth new wisdom. So I want us all to feel, although I'm sure we're all feeling very downtrodden as more and more icons and Hollywood come forward and share their pain. And there's going to be a lot more coming out, let me tell you, as Corey Feldman's been saying, the pedophilia that's at play in the world in Hollywood, when that starts to come out, it's going to shake us. And it's really going to bring us all to our knees, and we're going to cry out mercy. And the mercy is going to be by the grace of us bringing forth and growing a new paradigm of sexuality. And as Edgar Cayce said, the great American mystic, when we really learn this wound, and we will learn this wound, he passed away, I think, in the 50s or the 60s, but he said there would come a time in the early 21st century when humanity would really realize that one of the root causes of all their disease and exhaustion is misuse of the sexual energy, and that would create this revolution in sexual healing. And that would really start to open the golden age and the age of enlightenment, because when those energies are brought into alignment, as I've said, It creates so much energy that can be used for the high vibrational work and disciplines of spirituality. And I don't want to get loosey-goosey here. Spirituality to me means spirit is the great energy of connection and unity. And to be spiritual is to be always interested in being in connection, unity with others and the circumstances of your life. And to be in that kind of integrity with your circumstances of your life requires a lot of energy. And I know firsthand when I've been in the throes of my sexual wounds and I've jerked off and had all these orgasms and I'm completely depleted, I'm not able to meet the circumstances of my life at all. And I tragically fall over and over again myself, and mishaps start to happen all over the place. But when I really get masterful with my sexual energy, not repressing it, actualizing it, using it appropriately, the amount of enthusiasm and virtue that comes over me is remarkable. And virtue is a key word. In Chinese medicine, Jing, which is connoted to ova and sperm, is also connoted to the essence, the blood of the soul, if you will. And the essence in Chinese medicine, the Jing, there's a proverb, the essence is the virtue. And virtue is connected to the number 1 in Chinese numerology, and it is those, what they call, the marvelous impulses that always bring us into unity and connection with self and others and the world. And when we cultivate the sexual energy, I have found there's always a direct result of me feeling more virtuous as an individual. I want to help people more. I want to be better. I want to do good. I have more love to share, not just with my partner, but with the world. And that's the great boon of getting control of this. You are truly become a more bastion of love for the world. And it's a beautiful thing. Anyway, so much more to share on that, and I hope to relaunch my 4-week course in sacred sexuality, which I taught years ago. Haven't taught in a long time, mostly because I've been dealing with my own wounds, and I don't feel in integrity to share from that place. But I'm feeling quite alive in my recovery and able to be vulnerable now as a facilitator, knowing that we teach from our wounds, and I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm someone who's deeply wounded, in fact, from this, but I'm an enthusiast, and I think I have some know-how to share with people, and I'm very open to know from others their knowledge sharing. So Scorpio New Moon, take some time today to really think about what is the deepest wound that you are facing in your life, and I dare say for all of us it might be sexuality, and we are given an auspicious moment in this new moon in Scorpio with a trine with Chiron to really heal it. So I'd like you to brazenly, boldly bring in that revolutionary healing fervor, because Uranus is very alive in this new moon as well, and Uranus is the revolutionary. We are being called upon to bring a revolutionary healing paradigm into our human consciousness, and we are all the caretakers and the pioneers of that. It's our birthright, it's our destiny in this moment. This is the response that we need to bring online to all the harrowing stuff that's going on with all the sexual wounding in our culture. There's a sexual wisdom that is being birthed as well. And I hope you all can just take a moment today to sit in meditation and just ask yourself, how can you participate in this great sacralizing, this great consecration of sexual energy? How can you heal those wounds in all of our humanity and really help continue turning the wheel the other way and shifting this dark age to light? Love and glory to you all. May you be blessed with all the auspicious vibes that are at play today. This is Darren, peacing out.